Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we're going to be playing the Arena Open Day 1 for the Brothers War Limited format. This will be a best of one sealed event. It is the most competitive entry-level Brothers War Limited event. 5,000 gems or 25,000 gold is going to grant you access to the event, where you do not get your money back unless you get a 7-win run before getting 3 match losses. If you do get that 7-win run, you qualify for Day 2, which is a best of 3 Brothers War draft with thousands of dollars in cash prizes on the line. So that is really where it's at. That's what we're going to be shooting for today. We'll be doing our best, but without further ado, hopefully we can open some sweet cards as we bust open these Brothers War sealed packs. Well, these are absolutely horrible rares. Hajar Loyal Bodyguard is a 2-mana 3/3 with basically no other text in limited. We have 2 dual lands, which is basically 2 less rares than you should have. Quiet as Spike is a very expensive equipment that isn't really worth the cost commitment to cast and equip. Theoretically, yes, if you ever hit your opponent with it, you are going to make your opponent lose half their life, but you're spending 3 mana up front and an additional 3 mana. And your opponent can just trade off into whatever you equip. The ideal deck for this is where you can keep putting it onto like 1/1s, but even then, does not play very strong. Hostile Negotiations is uncommon power level, where it's just a card draw spell, and Felden is an uncommon power level rare as well, where it's just a 2-mana 2/2 haste that can't block. We do have 2 other rares in our sealed pool, but this is an incredibly bomb-heavy format with retro-framed artifacts and some of the strongest rares and mythics in limited of the whole year. So opening pretty bad rares like this is a pretty terrible start to a sealed pool. We now have a Phyrexian Revoker, doesn't really do anything, and a Brother's Hood and very weak board wipe, 3 damage to all creatures and planeswalkers, or destroying all cards with mana value 3 or less. So our rares basically don't matter. We can just disregard that and focus on what individual colors are the best. That's a pretty sad, kind of tilting way to start off the event. Already haven't been having a ton of fun with this format, so I was hoping we could get some sweet rares and have a nice, easy, sealed build today, but that is not where it's going to be at. We're going to have to try incredibly hard to grab some wins today. So we're going to take a look at our multicolored and colorless cards now. These are where some of the strongest cards can be, some of the strongest build arounds, like Yotian Tactician. If we have a ton of soldiers in the sealed pool, can be quite strong, or if we have a nice aggressive curve, the Falaji Vanguard can be quite good. So I like both of those. So red, white, and blue, white are looking nice. When we look at the colorless cards, looking for any cards that'll make it into any deck, there's not a ton. There's some okay stuff. Aeronaut's Wings, if you're low on flyers, can be helpful, making your big creatures jump into the sky. Burnished Heart can be okay, getting you some mana fixing and some ramp in the slower format. Foundry Inspector is pretty overrated. It's fine. 3/2 body for 3 is not good, but if you have a ton of artifacts in your deck, you can get a little bit of a cost reduction off of this, which is nice. If this helps you cast like 3 of your spells, it's okay. But you have to consider this is basically a 3-mana 3/2 that kind of like, it's kind of equivalent to like a 3-mana 3/2 that makes a Power Stone. It's not the greatest thing ever. It's solid. Supply Drop is a fine little trick. Couple Argivian Avengers are fine and sealed. Again, sealed is a little slower, and having evasive threats like flyers is kind of nice. So the Avenger being flexible and being able to give itself flyer is good. So no like sweet artifacts here, but some solid stuff that could fit into pretty much anything, like Burnished Heart, Argivian Avenger, Foundry Inspector sort of okay there. But the most exciting cards we've seen so far are definitely the Yotian Tactician, the Falaji Vanguard. Don't have any Power Stone refractors either, or energy refractors, sorry, for mana fixing. So that's pretty brutal. We do have 2 Evolving Wilds, but that's it. Without the energy refractors, it gets really difficult to try to splash in a 3rd color. All right. Not a big fan of the way this is starting here, but let's look at our individual colors. Maybe one of these colors is super sweet, good amount of removal, cheap creatures, get to play some kind of aggro deck or something. Try to cheese out some victories. This is a draft format where you basically have 2 options during the draft. You either get bombs, in which case you can kind of build however you want. You can definitely be a slower deck as long as you've got creatures in the early game to be blocking with. And then you just focus around trying to get to your bombs and cast those bombs and blow up your opponent. Or you have to be a very aggressive deck, just trying to finish off your opponent before they can draw into any of their bombs. In sealed, you don't really have that option. If you don't open bombs, you just don't have bombs, and if you don't open aggressive cards, you just don't have aggro. So the sealed format is very much, you're just at the mercy of how you open. It's just whatever your sealed pool can do, which here in white looks like some amount of stuff here. Some decently aggressive creatures, good curve of creatures overall, not horrible. And then good removal. 2 Prison Sentence and a Static Net is really nice, and Disenchants are fine. So really into that. Deadly Reproach probably the weakest removal spell, but Disenchant's not great either, but 2 Prison Sentence and Static Net are really, really good removal. So white, pretty consistent in terms of the creature curve and some very good removal spells. Not in love with the Thopter Architect, but the rest, pretty nice stuff here in white. And a few soldiers as well, for if we do go blue-white soldiers with that one uncommon that we opened up. Looking at our blue now, we've got blue's best removal spell, Weakstone Subjugation. We have blue's slow removal spell, Desynchronize. The card draw of Stern Lesson is also solid. Zephyr Sentinel is great, especially if you're a soldier deck. And then it kind of dries up. Spotter Thopter's fine. Retrieval Agent's very filler. Depth Charge Colossus is very filler. And Archaeologists are quite filler as well. Not a lot when it comes to our blue cards. Not a quantity or really a quality. There's like one or two really good ones, like the Zephyr Sentinel and Weakstone Subjugation, but then it just drops off pretty fast. So pretty mediocre stuff in blue. But if we really want to be blue-white soldiers, it is a possibility. Looking at our black now. Probably not playing Corrupt. I don't think we're going to be that heavy into black where that's a possibility. We've got Gnawing Vermin for some self-mill, Double Disfigure for cheap removal, and Overwhelming Remorse for unconditional removal. Ashnod's Harvester is a great aggressive card with cheap Unearth, which is really good. Infiltrator can be fine if you have Sacrifice, but we don't have any Sacrifice in here. Scrapwork Rager is very good value. Gigamole can be fine value. Black looks pretty average here. Good removal in black for sure. Other than that, just a relatively consistent stack of like 1 to 4 mana creatures here. Disciples of Gix is nice if you have enough Unearth cards to where you can consistently just slap 3 Unearth cards in your grave. And we do have 2 in black alone. In white, we had 3 Unearth cards as well. I think we had Scrapwork Cohort and Tokaja's Onulet. So that was 2 or 3 more Unearth cards. So we'd have 5 if we were in black-white, where Disciples of Gix would be pretty good. So black's pretty cool here. Self-mill, like black-white Unearth kind of strategy, maybe. Looking like the best thing we have so far. Because our blue just doesn't look that great for like blue-white soldiers or anything like that. Looking at our red now. Well, our red is pretty aggressive. It does have like Mishra's Dominations where we can get 2 for 1 really hard. Try to cast this on my 2 mana 3/1 and then just have it get disfigured. Immediately lose the game. Yeah, good amount of aggressive little 2-drops, which is nice. That's about all that there is going for it. Obviously, a board wipe in an aggressive strategy with 5 2-mana creatures is pretty counterintuitive. But the Unleashed Shell is pretty good removal. The Dominations aren't great for the reason I just listed. Getting 2 for 1 is pretty brutal. Slapping a creature onto the board, slapping an aura onto it, and then having your opponent cast 1 removal spell to kill both cards, or just block with a creature to kill both cards, is it's never really a winning plan. We do have the Strong Bull, which is a pretty important card for the red aggro decks, but that's really in draft where you can build around it and get a lot of Power Stone production or active trees and effects to steal your opponent's artifacts and blow them up. Chain Dancer's a bit slow, Juggernauts are solid. Yeah, just some mediocre aggro nonsense going on in red. Could fit in decently for a red-white aggro deck. Working with that Falaji Vanguard. Like a red-black unearthed deck, but I think that'd probably be a little worse than the red-white aggro, just because we have that great signpost uncommon for the red-white over the red-black. I think black is my third favorite color so far. Or, sorry, red is my third favorite color so far. I like white and black definitely as the number ones right now. See how our green looks? Wasteful Harvest, pretty unplayable. Fog of Wars, pretty unplayable. Tanos' Tinkering, pretty slow and unplayable. Excavation, slow and unplayable. Rust Goliath, unfortunately, the format is far more aggressive than I ever wanted it to be, and 10 mana 10/10 Reach Trample is not super playable, but 5 mana 3/5 Reach Trample is still borderline, still feels pretty slow, but I guess that's a thing. Haywire Might's sort of a thing. Just a very low quantity of green cards here. Green doesn't really look like an option when you consider like Fog of War, Wasteful Harvest, Tanos' Tinkering, and Excavation here as almost completely unplayable. Probably almost always getting cut. Yeah, I just don't think green's a thing here. So, not a big fan of our red. I think green is our worst color. Red and blue both have one or two things going for them, but not a lot. Black and white are still definitely my favorites. We could go black, white, unearth here and splash in the Scrapwork Mutts. These are very nice in an unearth deck because you discard an unearth card and then, you know, reanimate whatever. Splash in them Juggernauts as well, because these are cards that like we get to cast no matter what, because they're artifacts, they're completely colorless. And if we have a Battlefield Forge on board, if we have an Evolving Wilds tutor, probably we'd run one mountain. Then we kind of get there. And then if we're already playing Battlefield Forge plus Evolving Wilds, we also get access to the Vanguard anyway, while being in the stronger of the two colors. Instead of just forcing red-white to get the Vanguard in here, we can just splash it in instead. Seems pretty good to me. I like the idea of the black, white, red unearth aggro deck here. So let's get Frontliner in there for sure. Deadlier Post is good removal on the defensive, but we're going to try to be on the aggressive here. So use all of our removal that can clear out blockers specifically. Don't know if we'll have enough soldiers for the cavalry, so I'm going to put them in for now though. Architect always feels definitely slow for its mana cost. Only 2 power, 3 toughness for 4 mana. You need to get a lot of value off of the artifact enter the battlefield effect for it to be good. Onulet's definitely going in here though, because we have a little bit of self-mill between Gnawing Vermin and the Disciples. And of course the Scrapwork Mutt to discard a card, draw a card, that kind of stuff. So every unearth card that we have in these 3 colors is going to go into the deck. Cool stuff. We probably play the Gigamole in the deck as well for self-mill, even if we're not picking anything up with it. We play the 2 Scrapwork Mutts, and the 2 Mishra's Juggernauts, and the Vanguard. Play a Battlefield Forge, and 2 Evolving Wilds. And I think our curve is aggressive enough. We're probably not going to play the Argivian Avengers. Taking another peek over all of our colorless cards, but I think they're all just a little too slow to be all that interesting for this aggressive strategy. Foundry Inspector could be fine. It's never going to be all that impressive, though. Aeronaut's Wings could be fine. A bunch of stuff that could just be, like, fine. So, 43 cards right now. First and foremost, we're probably cutting the 2 Aeronaut Cavalries, because our soldier count is at 5 when you include both of the Cavalries, which means they're almost never putting a +1/+1 counter on something, because we only have like 3 other soldiers to put a counter onto. So that's probably not happening. One more card to cut. What's the creature count? 17? Very nice creature count for an aggressive strategy. We could even cut one of those. Just cut a Power Stone Engineer here. Power Stones are actually pretty exciting for the Unearth strategy because we can use the Power Stones for any of our Unearth cards because they're all artifacts. And obviously you can use Power Stones on any ability as well. So we can use the Power Stone to cast any of these artifacts or help cast any of the Unearth effects. Big fan of that. We could cut down to all of our non-creature spells, every single one just being a removal spell, and cutting the Hostile Negotiations, the card draw here. I don't know, having one card draw spell in here seems nice, but even without this, we have 2 Scrapwork Mutts and a Scrapwork Rager. So the Rager, obviously, you draw a card when we play it, draw a card again when we unearth it. That's just straight up card advantage. The Scrapwork Mutt is a little bit more of a workaround kind of card advantage, where we have to discard a card to draw a card. So if we're flooding out late game, discard a land, draw a card. And if it's early game, we can discard an unearth card, draw a card. I think that's like decent card advantage off of just still playing creatures. So we could play a very basic kind of limited deck, which I think is one of the better things to do in this format, which is to focus your deck around stuff that primarily is just stuff that affects the board. Cards that affect the board state is what limited resources would call it. So we could narrow the deck down to 100% cards that affect the board state in some way or the other. All creatures, all removal, all day. Black-white aggro, red splash for a Vanguard and some unearth effects. Cut the Hostile Negotiations, call it a day. We definitely can't cut a land here because while we are quite aggressive, we still have some really high mana cost stuff and a lot of activated abilities, a lot of unearth abilities. So I think cutting Hostile Negotiations and calling it a deck might be just where we're at. Looks pretty good to me. I think this is definitely the correct 3 colors to be playing around with this sealed pool. Just don't know if it's 100% the best build. We're going to take another peek through the other cards that we have access to. Excavation is very slow. Riposte is only on the defensive. Disenchant's a little bit narrow. Architect slow. Cavalry, we don't have enough soldiers. Looking at the black, Ashnod's Intervention is quite slow because you have to fully recast the creature. It doesn't just put it right back on the board like most of those spells do. Drudging Claw's cute with Unearth, but not really a big enough buff for the mana cost. Don't have any sacrifice for Infiltrator. We already talked about the negotiations, and we do not have enough swamps for Corrupt. So we're splashing between 3 colors. We're not going to play more red right now. It's just a splash. And I guess that's it for white, black, and red. Look through the colorless cards again. Just taking a peek at like the blue colorless cards, if any of these are good enough without the prototype effect, but they're not. So the fully colorless cards, Bone Snaw, too little impact to spend a card on. Aeronaut's Wings is close, but yeah, I think we're staying pretty focused with our just all aggressive creatures. Excuse me, all aggressive creatures and removal plan here. I mean, Foundry Inspector is honestly probably the closest out of everything that we're not playing to actually getting put into the deck, because we're low on 3 mana creatures in general, and it is gonna make all of these cheaper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 cards to make cheaper with it. It's still not insane. It's just fine. I could see running that though, because we can make our curve a little bit better if we cut 1 Power Stone Engineer and add 1 Foundry Inspector. So we only have 2 3-mana creatures right now. But the way our curve is right now is not bad either, and we really want to make sure we have 2 drops on turn 2. Really just kind of pile onto the board quickly. And the way that our curve is now could mean that turn 3 can be spent on casting a 2-mana creature and a 1-mana creature, because we do have a couple of those. So it's not a bad curve right now, for sure. But yeah, if I am putting another creature in here, I think I want it to be a 3-mana one, and that's pretty much the only 3-mana creature we have the choice of playing outside of Burnished Heart, which is definitely not for this deck. Not really ramping up like that. Throw that bad boy in here, and what do we do after that? Cut a 4-drop. Gigamole seems so nice in this deck, though. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 unearthed cards. There is no way I'm cutting Gigamole, which means there's no way I'm really cutting any of my 4-drops. I guess I could cut 1 Juggernaut, because they are the splash unearth effects. They are red unearth abilities. I do have 2 of them, so I could cut 1, and I still have 8 unearthed cards in the deck, which is still more than enough. And that cuts a little on the more expensive cards in the deck as well. That seems pretty reasonable to me. Make the curve a little more low to the ground, cut a 5-drop card for a 3-drop. I mean, this seems nice. I like this a lot more than I thought I would when I saw the rares, for sure. Unearth aggro nonsense. Don't love the mana base. We're going to put some more work into that right now. I'm almost certain I'm only going to play 1 mountain in here. Although the Vanguard, the Vanguard's the only thing that's like difficult about the mana base. Because the Scrapwork Mutt and the Juggernaut, they're really easy to just put a single mountain in the deck and call it a day. But the Vanguard can legitimately get stranded in our hand. Without a red source. And again, the only mana fixing we have in the whole sealed pool is Battlefield Forged Double Evolving Wilds. We do not have energy refractors or anything like them. I could actually reasonably see cutting Vanguard to put the Juggernaut back in. Like, it's good. Is it good enough to justify being the only card in our deck that, like, we actually, like, 50-50 half the time just can't cast? So they probably not. It's probably not that good. Like, we'd probably win a lot of games just off of, like, 2-for-1 value of just unearths all day long. I think I'm actually going to cut Vanguard for Juggernaut here. And just run 1 mountain. I mean, because, well, it's so difficult, because one mountain in the deck is still 4 red sources. Because it's 2 Evolving Wilds Battlefield Forge Mountain. Which means about 1 out of 10 cards. Which would mean 7 cards in the opening hand. After you've drawn 3 cards on average, you'll have that mountain. So it's still on average have the mountain in time to cast the Vanguard on turn 4. Because you draw 3 cards by turn 4, even if you're on the play. But that's just not, that's just on average. That doesn't mean we'll have it every single time. Sometimes we'll have it slightly sooner, sometimes we'll have it slightly later, and whenever we have it slightly later, that'll be pretty painful. The Vanguard is the kind of card that drops off significantly in power level the later the game goes on. If you're playing a Vanguard on like turn 7, turn 8, it's like, okay, I've spent 4 mana to get a 2/3 and do a little +2 buff. It is really much stronger turn 4 than any other time. Because you want to get this out as soon as possible, that way every single creature you play for the rest of the game is also getting +2/+0s. If this is the last card in your hand and you dump it out, it's significantly worse. Because then it's just like, okay, once every 3 turns or however often I draw a creature, then I'll get another +2/+0. Yeah, I think for that reasoning, because it does drop off so significantly, and all the other things I listed, I am going to drop to the 1 mountain and not play Vanguard, and we'll call this probably the deck. So let's get a mountain in here. I don't care the art right now, I'll fix it later. I just want to get the counts all down. We have 6 white cards, 7 black cards. Let's sort by our unearth effects as well. So 7 black cards, 2 black unearths, 6 white cards, 3 white unearths. That means black and white are exactly even if you count the unearths as black and white cards. Then we have 4 red unearth cards. So we are definitely on one mountain, and currently we're on 7 white sources and 8 black sources. So if we cut down a swamp here, that puts it at 7-7 between black and white. Seems very okay with me. We only have 1 card in the whole deck that requires 2 mana of 1 color, and it's a 6 mana card. So we just need double black by the time that we have 6 lands total. Shouldn't be that immensely difficult to do with 7 swamps, 2 evolving wilds. This seems like a very reasonable mana base to me. And I think we are going to call it a deck there. Alright, so here we have a look at the final deck we're going to be playing with today. This is a black-white unearth aggro deck. We are very focused on that unearth strategy, giving us a lot of value from the graveyard. We also have a very consistent curve of creatures, dropping things down on the board starting at turn 1 with Yoshin Frontliner and Gnawing Vermin. Vermin giving us that self-mill to potentially hit some of our unearth cards and get some value that way. We then have some Scrapwork Mutts, Ashnod's Harvester, and Power Stone Engineers at turn 2. The Power Stones that we get off of Power Stone Engineer can be quite nice in the deck, helping cast any of our artifact creatures that we have plenty of, or help spend that mana on unearth abilities, unearth costs. We've got Airlift Chaplain for more self-mill, as well as a decent little aggressive flyer. Foundry Inspector, because we are running a lot of artifact creatures, and this helps fill out the curve at 3 mana. Looking at 4 mana, some more great unearth cards, Scrapwork Cohort and Scrapwork Rager, and another self-mill card, Ravenous Gigamole, to dump some unearth in the grave. And then at 5 mana, Mishra's Juggernaut, Onulet, some big unearth threats, and at the top of the curve, Disciples of Gix, a very nice top end for any unearth deck. You get to drop a 4/4 onto the board and search your deck for your best 3 unearth cards and dump them into the graveyard. And with a total of 9 unearth cards in the deck, we'll pretty much always have 3 different unearth targets to toss into the graveyard when we drop this out to be able to be attacking for a ton the turn after the Disciples mills those cards. So that's super sweet. And then looking at our non-creature cards, they're going to be some very good stuff for aggro decks. The entire deck is full of cards that exclusively affect the board state. Definitely what you want out of your aggro decks. So tons of creatures here. And for the non-creatures, it's all for clearing a path for our creatures to just keep getting damage in. 2 Disfigures for very cheap removal, 2 Prison Sentences to remove anything, Static Net to also remove anything, and Overwhelming Remorse. Again, all 4 of these being able to shut off any creature, and the Static Net being able to shut off any non-land permanent, which is super, super nice. So very excited to see how this deck does. It is definitely a pauper or a peasant deck here. We are running 0 rares. Our rares are pretty bad in this sealed pool, but we did get to build a pretty consistent synergy-focused strategy here that looks to be relatively powerful. So hopefully with some solid synergy in this deck, some solid just cohesive strategies here, we can pull off some victories even against some potentially stronger decks than ours just by being a little more consistent, a little more low to the ground. So that's the plan today, and we'll see how it works out for us as we head into the gameplay. Here we go, game 1 on the plate. We've got a 2-drop creature. To get things rolling, Ashnod's Harvester. I am going to keep this hand. It certainly has some risk. We do not have a 3rd mana to get to our 3-drops, but as soon as we do, things will go very well for us if our opponent doesn't immediately kill the Foundry Inspector, because at 3 mana we get to play the Foundry Inspector, and that will give us access to the Scrapwork Rager, which will then draw us another card. Hitting a tapped land this turn is pretty awkward. Now I have to decide if it's better to just get Harvester out right now or guarantee that turn 3 Foundry Inspector. I think I'm just going to get the Harvester out now, because if we draw another land after this, we get to drop Foundry Inspector and then Evolving Wilds and play another 3-drop the turn after that. But that could be wrong here. We did hit another land, so even if it was statistically wrong, it worked out for me. Which is where you want to be. Better to be lucky than skilled today. So now, of course, we can Evolving Wilds this turn and play Scrapwork Rager on the same turn. Gothian Opportunist is moderately annoying, but it's not that bad for us. We play the Scrapwork Rager pre-combat here, and then we're kind of okay trading off the Foundry Inspector. Like, we're not super happy with it, but it's not terrible for us. I guess it sort of depends what we draw off of Scrapwork Rager. If it's another 5-mana artifact, then I probably won't attack with Inspector. But if it's anything else here, then I think attack with Inspector is fine. Yeah, I mean, my hand is all removal. I'd like to get this Onulet down, guaranteed. As aggressive as I want to be, I can win a long game with this hand. I guess I technically shouldn't have Evolving Wilds yet, because the Harvester has to exile when it attacks. That is very important to keep in mind, because we do have a lot of Unearth in our deck. Well, I hit the 5th land anyway, so it would have been better to attack with Inspector there, because now they have more blockers, and one they'd be very happy to trade with Inspector. This 3-1 with Unearth. Very, very good card. Do I even just want to exile that? Relatively happy to do that. Harvester does not have a good attack against a 1/1 token. Yeah, let's just get on the Unearth value plan here. Just keep attacking with this stuff. Whenever the Rager trades off, we draw another card off of it. Military Discipline, that is obnoxious. Still a 1-for-1 trade. They traded their combat trick for my Foundry Inspector because it's not really giving them any value now that it's on the board. This +1/+0 really doesn't matter, because that is still a 2 toughness creature over there. That is a good enough activated ability. I think I do want a Prison Sentence here. We want to do that after we Evolving Wilds, though, because I'd like my Scry to be still on top. Well, I am now running out of removal. Like Disfigure a lot here. Power Stone Engineer's fine. Not really against that 1/1. But Disfigure to trade for Opportunist is pretty spicy. We've got the mana to cast the Onulet and a Disfigure in the same turn. Overwhelming Remorse on our Unearth card. They're hitting us right back with the Exile the Unearth card to get rid of any value your opponent could possibly have. Moderately tempted to just figure Opportunist while they're tapped out, just in case they have a Gaia's Gift, but this is like a 4-color mana base. I don't know how likely they are to be playing around with a green combat trick here. Skyfisher Spider is an incredibly powerful card, and that is pretty frustrating for us. They get to sacrifice their Thran Spider now and blow up our Onulet. Obnoxiously strong. We made a 4-mana 3/3 reach with Bone Splinters attached. And a ton of life gain when it dies. I don't really want to Prison Sentence a 3/3. That being said, the Scry 2 is pretty big here, and our opponent has 1 card in their hand. I can put them to 2 life off this attack. 1 card in hand, we can probably afford to do this. I think I Scry both to the bottom. Although, we have enough Unearth in the deck that just getting a 1/1 that mills too. It's 1 Unearth in our grave, 1 Unearth in exile. There's 7 more cards in Unearth, with Unearth out of these 20? Because I just scryed 1 to the bottom. Well, 2 out of 20, 1 out of 3 is Unearth. If I hit an Unearth card, that could just be lethal, so I'm just gonna save the Gnawing Vermin here. Because all of our Unearth cards have at least 2 power, or they do at least 2 damage. I'm gonna save this in case I mill a Mutt, because that lets me discard a card, draw a card. So the fact that Unearth gives us haste is pretty good. Well, that was a good draw. Alright. Gnawing Vermin. Hit some Unearth. I did hit the Haster, but they hit a creature here that also makes their other thing a really big blocker. I do get to kill one of their creatures here, though. I kill their 2/2 soldier. Because they have to block both. And then I can recast the Rager from grave. Next turn. We don't want to do it till next turn because we do want to get the haste attack out with it. I think I play this Plains. I have 1 more Scrapwork Mutt in the hand, but the chances of me drawing a land as my card per turn and wanting to play that, and then unearthing Rager and hitting a card that's too expensive to cast after unearthing Rager is possible. Alright, Rager, we put them to 1 here for sure. Okay, we hit another land. I guess we just put them to 1. I guess I should have just played Engineer there. And waited a turn, and then if they didn't draw a creature, we just kill them here. But we still kill them if they don't draw a creature, so I guess it plays sort of the same. And they didn't draw a creature, so they're just dead. Alright. I don't know, some moderately questionable lines there. I'd have to think more and look back on it, but overall, really good showing from the deck. Very happy with that. We're going to start it off 1-0. Here we go, game 2. This is not the ideal mana base, but I think it's still a keep. Everything in the hand is castable right now. We have a Scrapwork Mutt to discard an Unearth card and draw a card. We have a good curve. We can play an Onulet on turn 4 thanks to the Inspector. If an Engineer trades off, that's going to be very good value for us this early in the game. I probably want to go Engineer into an Inspector into Onulet. Howling Mine, we're both going to be drawing 2 cards a turn. This is going to be an interesting game. The best combo with Howling Mine is if our opponent... I love how they use the original art as well, that's so cool. The best combo is if our opponent's in green-black, there is a green card that they can tap an artifact to add a mana of any color. If they assemble that combo, we could have some problems here. I could Mutt and discard Frontliner here. Otherwise, I'll have to discard... I guess I'll still have to discard at end of turn. Oh wait, no I won't, because I'm going to play a card here. What am I on about? I just want to play Power Stone Engineer. My brain is a mush pile. They are black-white, so they might just be... just playing an honest Howling Mine. Prison Sentence the Power Stone Engineer. I'm actually kind of okay with that. Obviously, I would prefer if it traded off and died, but even just getting rid of a removal spell, that's decent value for us. So we play the Foundry Inspector, and that's going to allow us to cast a Yoshin Frontliner for free, which is hilarious. I think we're using our opponent's Howling Mine a little better than they are right now. Oh, they do have green, so they could have the Sentinel Stalwart or whatever. Okay, we have the Evolving Wilds to grab a red source. I'd love to just static net this Gwenna. Is that worth it? 2 mana in any combination of colors to cast a creature. When they cast creatures of power 5 or greater, they get a counter on that and untap it. Yeah, that seems like that could lead to some incredibly explosive plays. It's probably for the best to just exile that immediately. We get a Power Stone off of doing this as well, and we have plenty of artifacts in hand to cast off of a Power Stone, so this seems like a solid way to spend the turn. We're also dealing 5 damage. Absolutely take it. They're going to disenchant our static net. They were checking out the net there for a second. That is a thing they could do at instant speed. Oh, they're going to exile the Foundry Inspector. All right. Scrapwork Rager's the draw. 8 cards in hand, so I can play whatever I want. Probably do want to cast a 5-drop. Probably the Trampler. Oh, I forgot about the Power Stone. We could have played Evolving Wilds. I guess since we have the Power Stone, we could go 4-drop, 2-drop, and put just a lot of power spread amongst multiple creatures this way instead. Because I didn't play Evolving Wilds, I'm going to go for this line and stay mana efficient. But I think the better line would have been Evolving Wilds Juggernaut there, but I completely forgot about my Power Stone. 100% just blanked on that. Feels like we're in a really good position here, unless my opponent has a board wipe that exiles, like Perilous Vault. Then they're under a lot of pressure. Ooh, 4 1/1s. Well, that's actually very good for my opponent as well. Block, 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 block. They just block my whole board. Trade my whole board here, but then I still have as many cards in hand as my opponent does. And I'll have some unearthed stuff in the grave for later. I'd probably just attack with everybody. Like, sure, alright, get these 1/1s out of here. I guess I give the cohort +1/+1 here because now they probably just trade with everything else. And then I can keep my 3 power on the board. Or they have to double block it, and if they do double block it, it's still got unearth, so it's fine if that one dies. Yeah, that's all fine. We got to actually keep a creature there. I totally forgot about the +1/+1. Making that attack a lot better, so I can Juggernaut, and that's it. That's probably what I want to do. Juggernaut Evolving Wilds for a mountain. Four, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could play Rager and Locust. But that's still just putting 4 power on the board. I'd rather just put 5 power with Trample. Yeah. Juggernaut, Evolving Wilds. The gang's all here, hanging out in the graveyard. Scrapwork cohort. Our opponent has some really good stuff at blocking. The trample from this Juggernaut is still going to be an absolute banger. Never mind. Juggernaut's dead. But so is their cohort. Alright, they've got a single blocker. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. 6 and 2. Kind of want to just get out unearth value immediately so they can't play any graveyard hate. Just keep everything that's currently in my hand for later. Then I'm not getting any creatures permanently onto the board. For 8 mana, I could go Onulet and Locust and exile their Scrapwork cohort. That's pretty appealing. Since they have an unearthed card in the grave, playing Locust at least this turn is pretty nice. Trading some 1/1s. Lorn of the Third Path, disgustingly good card in this limited format. 3 mana, 2/1 Vigilance, blow up an artifact or enchantment when it hits the board. Skyfisher Spider, another disgustingly good card. Sack the Lorn, blow up whatever non-land permanent they want. Multiple 2-for-1 removal spell creatures in a row. Alright. Am I just gonna mill out to their Howling Mine? That would be so funny. So they're at 12. This is so bad. 2 for 1. There's a removal spell on a stick creatures here. 3 mana after Juggernauts. Just not doing enough damage. I can't get through these 3/3s with everything in my hand. They're all just 2/1s. Wait, Juggernaut Cohort here? Makes the most of my mana. And they're both at least 3 power. So they kill their blockers. If they want to kill Onulet, they have to double block it and take 8. They block this way, they take 9. Alright. They do gain some life from Spider. They gain 2, right? Spider's engrave and Lauren's engrave. Yeah, they gain 2. So they are at 5. We still have both of our disfigures, both of our prison sentences, and an overwhelming remorse left in our deck. So a ton of removal left in the deck. Just trying to figure out how scared I should be of Self-Mill. Oh god, I should definitely be scared of Misery Shadow. And Gnarlroot Pallbearer. Those are tremendously massive blockers. They have a 4/5, a 5/5, and essentially a 4/4 blocker. And Misery Shadow shuts off our entire deck, exiling our Unearth cards. Cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a counter on this and untap it. So it's going to stay tapped here. Ooh, there's Prison Sentence. With Prison Sentence, I'm pretty sure I can just kill my opponent. I believe that we're good. I severely hope they don't have another trick here, and this is just going to get there. I think it should. Disenchant? Well, I can unearth that. Oh wait, no I can't. Because whenever my creatures die, they get exiled instead. Oh shoot, I needed to hold Battlefield Forge up to, right, because now they block here, take 3. If I held Battlefield Forge up, I could definitely reanimate a Mutt. Have I played a land this turn? I don't know if I played a land this turn. Maybe I can unearth Rager. If I unearth Rager, is that lethal? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it's just as much damage as unearthing Mutt would have been, which is 1 off of lethal. Okay, I didn't play a land, so I can still unearth here. But I put them to 1, not 0. Which is not mega cool. Oh wait, no, I do put them to 0. I'm losing my mind. I can't do math. I don't know why I can't do math today. Good gravy. That's gonna be an issue in the future. But I'll take it. We're 2-0 now, I think. The mathless fool wins again. Here we are now in game 3. This is definitely a slower hand. We are not playing anything till turn 3. But we have all 3 colors of our mana and a great removal spell, a great late game. Excuse me, so we are going to keep this. Well, thank you, opponent. I will take that value. Opponent mills us with the vermin. I'm going to mill myself again. They milled our Yoshin frontliner for us. And our Overwhelming Remorse only costs 2 mana now already. 1-for-1 trade here is pretty acceptable to me. Our deck is full of 1/1s as we saw last game, so... And now my Overwhelming Remorse costs a single mana. Our deck isn't full of 1/1s, it's full of 1 toughness creatures, like Scrapwork Mutts. That's obnoxious. Frickin' Carrion Locust. I don't think I'm killing a 2/1. Probably just exiling their flyer. And then playing my own. Scrapwork Mutt is a pretty exciting draw, since we get to discard an unearthed card and draw a card. I like our ability to grind out a long game with all the unearths, so I'm going to take this trade here. Dragon Engine, 1/3 flyer. Well, pretty happy I took that trade, because a 2/1 flyer is not going to do anything against a 1/3 flyer, although I guess I could just prison sentence it, which I'm probably going to do now anyway. Probably better than playing Mutt, because I can scry into my 5th land and play a 5-drop next turn. Ow! Battlefield Forge has shot me in the face. That's an awkward 5th land to hit, because it comes in play tapped, which means I won't play a 5-drop next turn. And the 3-drop there is really good. Go super awkward here and pick up the Cohort to play next turn, and the Evolving Wilds for the turn after that. And then I play really slow. I mean, our opponent is on 3 mana here. We can probably play real slow. Alright. We're going to go really slow about it. Cohort next turn, and the turn after we're just going to play a Scrapwork Mutton and a Evolving Wilds. Well, that Killzone Acrobat has one very nice piece of sacrificial fodder. They can sacrifice the 1/3 that is arrested anyway. Gikshin Skullflayer, got a little 3 mana 2/3 here. That will get pretty scary later in the game. Alright, they are jumping into the sky. Could discard this Evolving Wilds to draw a card here, but a guaranteed 5th land is better than almost any draw we have. I could also just not discard a card to Scrapwork Mutt, technically. But that feels almost definitely wrong. When they're both unearthed. I'm at 13. So maybe I feel like I'm supposed to discard something to the Scrapwork Mutt, but I like having these large bodies to trade off twice. Yeah, I'm just gonna get weird about it and just not. Dwarven Forge Chanter, a 1/3 with prowess, and in order to target it, I'll have to pay 2 life. So the Skull Flayer is going to get bigger and bigger if I kill this Acrobat. Kind of cool, just double block trade into Skull Flayer here. Get it off the board now. They have Disfigure, and they're still 1-for-1 trading Disfigure into Mutt. And it's out of the way before their Prowess card is attacking. So that still feels like pretty good value in my favor. We just lose a 1-1. In addition to the 1-for-1 trade of Disfigure to Mutt. Yep, let's play some beef that also gains us some life. I'm gonna hold on to this land to discard to the Mutt later. Until I draw another additional land. 1-1 Death Touch. Fair enough. Okay. I was gonna say that's gonna be some snap blocks from me. Again, if this Acrobat dies, the Skull Flayer starts getting bigger and bigger. Oh, they're just gonna give it flying, and they're just gonna go for a bunch of flying attacks. Very good draw of Disfigure here. Very into that. I can play Juggernaut and Disfigure, which is definitely the line. Play Onulet, trade into Warplow, gain 2. But then Skull Flayer's a 3-4 attacking into my 3-1. Although I have Juggernaut on blocks. We're against the Skull Flayer. Yeah, I'll get the Onulet in there. Should probably just have gotten the Cohort in there as well, but it makes them sack something to Acrobat, or it takes that trade pretty well. It is quite concerning they did not want to trade their Death Toucher into my 4-4. But I guess my 4-4 does gain life when it leaves the battlefield, so... They're just trying to find lethal here. They have an Excavation Explosion in hand for 3 damage, trying to get me to 4, or trying to get me to 3 life. Trying to hit me for 4. Again, Disfigure is super, super good here, because if they really want to get me down to 4 or something, they're gonna sacrifice something to attack with Acrobat at some point, in which case I can Disfigure them really hard. Paying a life for Mutt is sketchy. Because then I'm dead to 2 Excavation Explosions, 3 damage to face per piece. I don't know if I'm sending an Onulet anymore. I'm definitely sending in Juggernaut. That's a forced attack. I guess this is the last turn Onulet can attack profitably. So after this turn, the Skull Flayer is a 4-5. But I gotta be real worried about the Crackback because I don't have a Juggernaut to block with anymore. Just have a single Cohort and a Disfigure. Yeah, let's just send the Juggernaut in. Alright. Trample over a little bit. We are going to kill the Acrobat. Can reanimate the Juggernaut next turn. Just going to shoot myself in the face here. Power Stone Engineer. Alright, it was probably worth it. Another Skull Flayer? Good lord. Very scary. Opponent is at 9 life. If I disfigure the Warplow and play a Juggernaut, they can block Juggernaut with their 4-5, block Onulet with their 2-3 and take 5. They are very alive. They are very alive. I hate these skull flares so much. I'm gonna draw some of my prison sentence overwhelming remorse style removal, but I already hit 2 of them. Another juggernaut? Okay. That's a draw. That's a legitimate draw here. So if their skull flare trigger is asking to go to the stack right now. So now we're at the point where if they don't play a creature, we can disfigure Warplow. They have 2 total blockers. They could block both Juggernauts and take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 exactly dead. So that we have exact lethal if they can't play another creature this turn. Be pretty wild if they couldn't, considering they're still stuck on 3 mana. Unless their hand is all like 4 mana creatures or something. It's definitely not like, they're not flooding out. We know that. So yeah, if they just go to the end step without playing another creature, now is the time we have to pull the trigger and just disfigure a Warplow. So we have that opportunity to present lethal next turn. Especially if we're really lucky and they cast like an energy refractor or something and actually like tap out for something that doesn't affect the board. That would be beautiful for us. Because then we could feel a lot safer about the just going for lethal play. I guess the problem is if I make the play that goes for lethal and then they just have a disfigure or something in hand, I just die on the crackback. Well, kind of an awkward way to end that game, but luckily we are not going to have to think through it because our opponent just left the game. They might have gotten DC'd, might have had an emergency come up, any of that kind of stuff. Gotta just run to the bathroom real quick, but they went to their upkeep and they did not return. So yeah, we were going to have kind of a dilemma there, where if they didn't play a creature here, if they just passed the turn, I'd have actually a tough choice in my opinion, because we would know that they have 3, maybe 4 cards in hand after drawing for turn that are not lands, nor are they creatures that cost 3 or less. So the problem with just disfiguring the Warplow and going for lethal there is if I disfigure Warplow, untap, slam all my mana into Juggernaut, and then attack all, and they just go block, Juggernaut, disfigure Engine here, take 7, then they just kill me on the crackback, because this Skull Flare alone would hit me for 6. So we would actually have a really rough choice there in what we wanted to do if that game continued on. So pretty lucky for us that our opponent just doesn't show up, because no matter what, that was going to be a stressful turn there, deciding whether or not we try to go for lethal or we just hold on to disfigure, let Juggernaut get its forced attack in, and then just disfigure the Skull Flare when they go for the free block there. I probably would have ended up just doing that, because again, that reasoning where if they just drew a card and passed turn, that's 4 cards in hand that they're not playing with 3 mana up. It means none of them are creatures that cost 3 or less, none of them are lands. The odds of them just having like a single disfigure or overwhelming remorse or something like that would be too high for me to feel justified just go and swing everybody in and hope for the best. So I think it would have been Juggernaut and try to get Disfigure to trade in a Skull Flare, and then just keep this game going on, keep grinding out a long one here. But those Skull Flares were just going to get more and more threatening the longer I let that game grind out. So very lucky way to end that game, and we are going to be 3-0 now in the Arena Open Day 1. All right, here we are on the play in Game 4, and luckily for us, our deck mulligans really well, where we get to have solid plays even on like monocolored hands, because we have so many artifact creatures with all of our unearthing cards. So we get to keep just a mono black hand here. Ooh, autonomous assembler. Am I glad that came out as a 2/2 so I can just disfigure it and not be worried about it whatsoever. Because otherwise that thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger every single turn. It would have been a 3/3, then a 4/4, then a 5/5 every turn. So it would have been pretty bad. I can Inspector and Scrapwork Mutt here, which feels pretty great to me. Ambush Paratrooper, 1-for-1 trade is a-okay by me. They have Paratrooper plus Military Discipline. Alright, that's still a 1-for-1 trade. Military Discipline for a Scrapwork Mutt. And the Mutt has Unearthed, so it feels maybe even a little in my favor. Although they get a +1/+0. They get +1/+0, I get an Unearthed card. That's actually just a perfectly even trade. As long as Foundry Inspector's on board, I can actually just cast this Juggernaut, so I'm not going to discard it. Alright, Veteran's Power Blade doesn't really do anything right now. Theoretically, they slap it onto Paratrooper in the future, but I don't think this Paratrooper is very long for the world against all this aggro for me. They're going to have to trade it off, and they are going to trade it off into Inspector, which is why I went for the pre-combat Juggernaut there. That way we could attack all and let any trade happen. And opponent stuck on mono white, gonna scoop them up. Alright, 4-0 it is, heading into game 5. Alright, here we are in game 5 now. We have a turn 2 Power Stone Engineer. I might be going crazy, but I feel like we only got like one Power Stone Engineer to actually die today. All the rest have been like prison sentenced or just ignored. Well, this is a definite keep. We have all 3 of our colors. We have a 2-drop, a good removal spell, and a great late game play. We did draw into another late game play, which is a little awkward. The Disciples of Gix here. But now we have another early game play, a Scrapwork Mutt to play next turn. Burnished Heart from our opponent. We are very cool with trades with that. I might even disfigure that to keep my opponent from just going for the ramp of grabbing 2 more lands. Keep them low on mana like we will be here. It seems pretty reasonable to me. I can even discard Juggernaut here. It's gonna be 2 turns till I can play it anyway. Oh, that is really not the right way to tap. That's one of those things that the auto tapper would do. But that would have been all me. Oh, Yoshin Frontliner, that's difficult. Now I have to choose between Frontliner or killing the Heart. If they sack the Heart, they're spending their whole turn just to get that mana. I guess they get to get a block to stop some damage and get the mana though. Right, because if I just play Frontliner, then they just pass turn, then when I go to Disfigure Heart, they sack it for mana, or I attack all, then they block and sack for mana. I think I just Disfigure here. Next turn I can play Frontliner and Prison Sentence, which is pretty reasonable. Because if they don't have a Burnished Heart on board, they're most likely playing some creatures. Yoshin Frontliner. Ooh, they're stuck on 3 mana. That makes the Disfigure feel really good. They did not have a 4th land to play this turn. They were probably relying on that Burnished Heart. Frontliner trades real well into our 2/1s, so as kind of whack as it is to throw removal at a 1/1, this removal spell at least scries as well to set up our draws, get to our 6 mana we need for Juggernaut and Disciples. So we kind of just want to get land, and there they are. Land. Sure thing. They could have an Ambush Paratrooper here, but that's a 1-for-1 trade, which is very fine by me. They could have a Deadly Riposte, which is also fine by me. Because either one of these creatures dying is pretty cool with us. One of them has Unearth, the other one has a Death Trigger. So it looks like nothing from our opponent there. Wow, this disfigure on the burnished heart is just going swimmingly for us. No fourth land from our opponent yet again. So now they probably ambush paratrooper and kill frontliner, but it's definitely worth still sending in this attack. Nope. No ambush paratrooper. Fair enough. The no value scrapwork mutt. Let's go. No way in a million years do I discard Disciples of Gix. It's a disenchant. Okay. That makes sense. Steel Seraph. Very strong card. Probably not enough here. But that is devastatingly powerful. Because that can get lifelink every turn. If I just unearth Juggernaut, they can block Juggernaut, take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because Frontliner's ability? Yeah, if I just unearth Juggernaut, they're just dead. It is not enough. That is exact lethal. And even if it wasn't, the most damage they can possibly stop is by blocking Juggernaut. So they have to lose their Steel Seraph either way. But that's exact Z's. And they're going to scoop them up. That is going to be 5-0 so far. Just need to grab 2 more wins before we pick up 3 losses today. I'm going to be doing my best. My fingers are very crossed. But this deck has been sweet so far. No matter what, we are getting 1,000 gems back. So we're not losing all 5k. But we are really hoping grab a couple wins playing that day 2 event tomorrow. Here we are in game 6 of the Brothers War Arena Open event. We are undefeated so far, just needing to grab 2 more wins, hoping for the best here. Gnawing Vermin is going to mill a Mishra's Juggernaut, a very nice start to the game. We've got an Airlift Chaplain and a Gigamole coming up, so some more self-mill to set up some late game plays. Unfortunately, not the most aggressive start. No 2-drop to follow up the Gnawing Vermin with, but we do have a Disfigure to stop our opponent's early game plays, such as a Razorlash Transmigrant. Can't block, 6 mana, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, that's slow enough that we can just disfigure it here and not worry about its reanimation effect for quite some time. So I'm going to disfigure it right there because that is the best time by far for that to fit into my curve. I do not want that Plains badly enough to not just get the counter on the Chaplain, so let's just get the counter on the Chaplain, and we did mill another Unearth card. The self-mill card's putting in work. Now we have a Gigamole for turn 4. Three mana now from our opponent. That's going to be a carry in to exile one of our Unearthed cards, probably. They're looking at them. Nope, it's a Gurgling Anointer. I was wrong. That's quite annoying. 3 toughness there, and if they play anything that draws a card during their turn, that will be a second card drawn, and that'll be a 2/4. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Definitely want to hit some of our better removal here. Let's go Gigamole. Pick up either Mutt, but I'd rather probably keep them in grave and have this be a 3/4, because a 3/4 can actually attack into the 1/3 Anointer. Again, if they just draw a single card here, though, it's not going to be good for us. The Anointer will be a 2/4. Yeah, our graveyard's looking excellent here. Unfortunately, we milled our Evolving Wilds and Battlefield Forge, so we only have 2 red sources left in the deck. It's an Onulet to play this turn. That seems reasonable to me. Opponent is holding all of their mana up. There's all kinds of tricks they can do to make this combat not go in my favor. Just attack with everybody and see what it's going to be. Oh, just draw some cards. It does make the Anointer a 2/4, so they get to kill the Chaplain, but we're still just getting in for 4, that's all fine. Yeah, that's fair enough, that's very acceptable. Now we can play a 4/4 that can still attack into the 2/4. Caress our Scrapwork Rager. Sure, I can still unearth that. And then an Air Marshal. Well, we are definitely hoping to draw one of our 2 red sources. We are halfway through the deck, so it does make some statistical sense to have 2 red sources left in the next half of the deck. Well, Rager's going to die anyway. Onulin only dies if they double block. Gigamole only dies if they double block. Vermin kills Marshall if they block there anyway, and it kills Marshall if they block it with Marshall. Attack with everybody. They are going to double block the 3/4 and we'll kill the Air Marshal. Put them down to 7 here. Now we have the Prison Sentence to use on the Anointer. And that can also hopefully scry us towards the red source we're looking for. But even if it doesn't, we can Prison Sentence and Scrapwork Cohort from the grave next turn. No, don't have another Gix's Caress, that's obnoxious. Alright, well, play Cohort, they block there, take 4. That's so frustrating. Yeah, I'm gonna hold this in hand in case I hit my red source. This is the best play we have by far. Wow, they had Caress plus Exile removal. God dang it. Yeah, we're just losing now. Had to get punished by the mana base in at least one of these games. This is unreasonable though, statistically. Just got some poor luck on some mills here. Losing out on our red sources. And then some really poor luck in when our opponent drew the Gix's Caresses. If they had anything else in their hand that would cost enough mana to where they couldn't cast it if they cast Gix's Caress. Gix's Caress was like 100% the wrong play there too. Because I had like just drawn into that last card, so they know that whatever I had in hand was just a top deck. Because I just played some card draw spells. So the Gix's Caress just being perfectly timed for them to have enough mana to go Caress plus Remorse. Just brutal. Really bad game there for us. Super, super bad beats. 6-1 it's going to be. Or 5-1 it's going to be, sorry. Alright, here we are on the play with a super aggressive hand for Game 7. We are 5-1, competing for those last 2 wins to try to make it into day 2. We do need to get 2 wins before 2 losses. But we've got quite an aggressive start here. Very into this hand. And the self-mill from Gnawing Vermin is going to make sure our graveyard is large enough we won't have to exile our own unearthed card to a harvester or anything like that. Scrapwork Mutt from our opponent is a really good trade to make for our harvester. Opponent gets to know what we draw this turn. It's a Prison Sentence. Well, That's unfortunate. They actually got some very good information from the Mishra's Bauble there. Certainly putting in its work. Still just offer this trade here. Both of us can get our unearthed cards engraved. And we'll grab our red source immediately so we don't get a repeat of last game. Tower worker. Could prison sentence that to just keep getting in. It is plenty good value to just exile their mutt though and hit them for 3. Scrapwork Rager. Very nice unearthed card from opponent. We do hit the 5th mana to drop our Juggernaut down, and that is going to be our win condition for now. Just bash that thing through whatever's going on their board. Overwhelming Remorse. Overwhelmingly bad for us. The exile removal in the format is so good against our unearthed deck. Every match we've been playing against it has been pretty rough. Orange Stoneseeker, sure. 2/2 Menace. Harvester, sure. Kind of falling behind a little bit now. Harvester is very good against our deck. We play a Power Stone Engineer, hold up at his figure. I don't think they have anything on board good enough to prison sentence here. Alright, so we win that combat pretty handedly, but both of those cards have unearthed, so our opponent still gets good value. Evolving Wilds from them. Are they going to grab a white source? Are they on the other end of the spectrum? They're on the red-black / the white? Nope, just black-red. Nice and streamlined over there. We're going to take 2 from this Rager, most likely. Alright, get the Harvester as well. Let's take some damage. Go for it. Hey, okay with this. We get the Harvester's Unearthed out of the way before we actually have an Unearthed card in our grave for them to exile. Seems good to me. Still got Prison Sentence for their first creature that's big enough to block super well. At this point, I'm drawing pretty dead, so Scry 2 from the Prison Sentence is kind of valuable, and I can attack with everybody if I shut off the Tower Worker. This could blow up in my face, but I've got a lot more removal in this deck. There's another Prison Sentence, there's an Overwhelming Remorse, there's another Disfigure, there's a Static Net. So I'm just going to drop that down and try to get really aggressive here now, because I get to attack with everybody. Put them down to 6, and now I have the Static Net for whatever they play this turn. So if they play a single blocker, they're just dead. I'll hold on to this land. I still have more Scrapwork Mutts I could play. I actually haven't drawn any of them yet. So I have 2 Scrapwork Mutts I could play. Autonomous Assembler. Big, scary, but it's only 1 blocker, so if they play nothing else here, they're dead. Raise to the ground. Well, luckily, that card has Unearth, which means they're not quite dead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because I can't afford to unearth it right now. But we're definitely killing Assembler first. And then they're probably dead next turn. If we had 1 more mana, they would be dead immediately. For Rex, that's lifelink. Of course, that has lifelink. A 7-power lifelinker. Okay. It's got Menace as well, but I can double block it. Alright, we're going to go back to the drawing board a little bit here. That quite likely just means my opponent wins, period, but we've got a chance. We milled 3 unearthed cards. That's absolutely incredible. Format, I could play something up front, like play Rager up front here. Next turn I can unearth Frontliner and Juggernaut, and that probably kills them. Right, I just need to do... I think I'm going to play this land now, so I can go land here, top deck a land, play and play as much from grave as possible. But I think, like, if they attack me, I just, like, block with everybody to make sure the Flesh Gorger dies, and then I just unearth a bunch of stuff and kill them. If it passes back to me, I just need to make sure I can hit them for 10. I could also not block here, but then if they play enough blockers to survive... Oh boy. 6, 7, 8, 9. 6... Probably doing Juggernaut Frontliner, but if I hit a land, I go Juggernaut Onulet instead. That's 9 damage off those 2 cards alone. 7 power, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 toughness. They kill everything if I block with everything. If they have a removal spell in hand, that's going to be really bad for me. Or they have like Whirling Strike here, give it even more power. They're at 10 power, how could they possibly survive after this? Or if they're at 10 life? Because after this they need to untap this to survive? I can't think of a way in red-black to untap this thing. Juggernaut Frontliner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, 14. Their best way to survive feels like if they had like a trick on our blocks there. So yeah, 2 blockers, they don't survive, right? No, they can choose... Oh my god. A rare from the retro artifacts that it's basically impossible to play around because it's a rare from the retro artifacts. I guess we could have been playing around the card that exiles from grave, though. That is so beyond tilting. If they ever kill our vermin, we kill the Revoker. This card is so dumb. I just didn't want to get got by like a Whirling Strike style combat trick. But I think I made the right play, because I was playing around like combat tricks as figure style stuff that would really get us off blocks to where we wouldn't lethal them next turn anymore. I feel like there's a lot more of that than there is this in the format. More combat tricks than Unearth Hate. It's obnoxiously bad. I can't even get any value off Onulet now. I could go Onulet Frontliner and attack with it as a 5/5. They're just going to gain 7 life again and be at 17. Just gotta be kidding me. Probably should have held the land in case I hit a mutt. They had a 0 card hand at the start of this turn, so I don't think it's correct to play around the trick now. There's the Locust that I could have played around to get the Juggernaut back from grave. They're at 12. We can pretty much guarantee a hit for 5 here. Tempted to play a flyer here, but it might be better to just rage. If they draw a card, this Trench Stalker is going to gain them a lot of life, but I can't block it well no matter what. There are graveyard recursion spells, so I am just going to Locust here. There's Emergency Weld to bring a creature back from grave and get a 1/1. So we'll do that instead of Rager. They're dead to 3 attacks in the sky, unless they can draw a card. Then they gain 4 every time they do that. They did not draw a card this turn, no life gain there. Oh, well now they can't. Even if they top deck life gain, they can't gain life. Or even if they top deck a card draw spell, I should say. There's the Scrapwork Mutt. I definitely should have held that land that I played earlier, because I'd be discarding it right now. If I exile this, they're just dead on board, but then if they have removal, that can be bad for me, but I'll definitely just play it. Go for the dead on board. Oh my god. That was way more stressful than it needed to be. That game would have played out so much better if I just immediately traded for the 7/5. That is a sick deck from our opponent. Autonomous Assembler and Flesh Gorger we had to run through here to get that win. That was terrifying stuff, as you can tell from my reactions there. I still feel like my reasoning was solid for not blocking there. Because, like, counting up the math, like, they can play 2 blockers and I still just kill them. The problem is if they have a way to exile a card from my grave or shut off my Unearth ability, which they did. And I feel like, statistically speaking, there are less ways to exile a card from grave or counter an Unearth ability than there are ways to completely ruin my block there. Right, because any instant speed removal spell would do it. Disfigure, Overwhelming Remorse, any of that, and any combat trick like Whirling Strikes would have just basically wiped my entire board and still gained them 7 life and let them keep the worm, had I went for the giant block there. With no information on what their 2 cards in hand were. I don't know. Either way can get absolutely blown out. Right, like the way that I chose to play got absolutely blown out by the graveyard hate, the Unearth hate from Phyrexian Revoker. But I feel like it was at least equally likely that going for the block there would have gotten blown out by a combat trick there. If not more likely. At least like an even likelihood there. Like it's just a rock and a hard place what you choose to do against the Gorger off that attack. Still pull it out though in the end. Still pull it off. 6-1 it will be. We have 2 rounds in the chamber to see if we can hit the bullseye and get the 7-win run. So 2 final attempts, maybe just 1 if we get it immediately. It is time to head into the rounds known as the final boss. All right, here we are in the final boss. Round 1 of 2 if I fail, round 1 of 1 if I succeed. Our opponent is on the play. Don't love to see that. We are very aggressive. We'd love to be on the play, but our hand is very keepable. We have all 3 colors thanks to our Battlefield Forge, and we have a good curve. We have a 2-mana play, a 3-mana play, a 4-mana play, and a 5-mana play, as well as interaction. Now the static net that we've drawn Very, very nice opening hand here. I think I am going to discard our 5-drop Onulet and instead plan to play like Static Net or something on turn 5. Our opponent starts with 2 mountains and a Dwarven Forged Chanter. That is a 1/3 with prowess. We have to spend 2 life to target it. And they're just going to attack in. We can't block well, even if they don't have a card for prowess, we can't block well. Opponent starts off 2 mountains, does not play a land turn 3. That should be helpful for us to see an opponent stuck on 2 mana at the very least. They at least miss 1 land drop here. I can play a 3/2 which threatens to block the Forged Chanter, unless they have a prowess card that will get them to stop attacking us. However, this doesn't actually help us cast anything else, no other artifacts in hand. I think I would rather play the Flyer and see if it can mill some Unearth cards. I do take damage to do this, but we're only taking 1 a turn, and we do mill an Unearth card, a Scrapwork Mutt. I'm going to decline to pick up this Plains. I would rather have a 2/2 Flyer than another land, and unfortunately for us, our opponent rewarded for the greedy keep. They kept a mono-colored 2-land hand and hit their off-color of mana now after 1 missed land draw. So very lucky draw for our opponent there. And that is going to get them into the game here. Excavation Explosion, that is really going to get them into the game. They get to kill our Flyer and get a Power Stone token. We now have an Overwhelming Remorse. That should be incredibly cheap to cast. I'm going to go for a Gigamole here, see if I mill some more Unearth. It's all about the value. Nope, we milled a land, a removal spell, and another land. Not ideal for us. Definitely would prefer not to have milled that removal spell. Opponent hits land again. Runner, runner, 2 excellent draws for our opponent in a row. Completely rewarded for the keep here. And a go for the throat on the Gigamole, blowing up our 3/4, giving that Forged Chanter prowess, and casting a Tower Worker, so they have all the mana in the world now. Well, I've got Overwhelming Remorse and Static Net, so I feel like I can just remorse this Tower Worker here and still have a Static Net for whatever big bomb creature they potentially play later. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so that my Mutt can keep getting in, although Mutt can't get in past a Forged Chanter anyway. So it already can't attack in if they just don't attack with the Forged Chanter, so I might actually just hold on to this Overwhelming Remorse. It's probably better. Our other creatures can already attack through the Tower Worker, our 3/2 Foundry Inspector. Obliterating Bolt. Very good, very efficient removal. That's 3 for 3 there. Excavation Explosion, go for the throat, and Obliterating Bolt. Seems very good from our opponent. Send in the squad, take 3. Mine Worker. Are they trying to assemble Tower Worker, Mine Worker, Power Plant Worker? Well, I can just remorse later whenever that actually gets like set up. 1 mana away from Juggernaut here. Definitely worth it to pay a life for the Power Stone Engineer. And then we pass. I can attack Mud into the Mine Worker, but sort of feels like I need to be on blocks now. Playing the long game, Remorse and Static Net for whatever creatures are too dangerous. Penregan Strongbow, that's a very dangerous creature. They can sacrifice Power Stones to deal a damage to us and give it +1/+1. And they can do the same with any artifact. So if they have the Act of Treason effect, the steal effect, they can steal one of ours and sack it against us. So I'm just going to... it's actually probably better to Static Net that. because this way I get a Power Stone, and I gain some life. More importantly, getting that Power Stone so I could cast Juggernaut. So we're going to exile the Pendragon Strongbow. Now is their opportunity to sacrifice something before it dies if they want to shoot us in the face. They're not going to sack anything, keep it all around for now. And we'll pass the turn. They're just going to gain a life from Mine Worker. Monastery Swift Spear, not too threatening at this point in the game. A 1-2 with haste and prowess. So if they do have an instant in their hand, they can have a very good attack with Swift Spear plus Forge Chanter. Alright, that's almost guaranteed to be an instant. If it's Disfigure, they kill like 2 of our creatures here. They kill both of our creatures without losing one, but I think we kind of have to go for the sort of double block here and see if we can actually get a kill here. Because next turn we know we can play a 5-3, which can easily just go for a one-on-one block. Mishra's Onslaught, okay. So we still trade. Take a lot of damage though. Get another Power Stone, which is very important here. Now I can play the Juggernaut and hold up Remorse and or Disfigure. Excellent. Super, super happy with Power Stone Engineer here. Letting us hold up a Disfigure or Overwhelm Remorse is incredibly important and incredibly powerful this turn, because we're at 7 life. Alright, land off the top from our opponent. They have 1 card in their hand. We have all of this to work with. We're just at a very low life total. Onulet in the future should be really valuable for us. There's a Blitz Automaton, but ooh, this Overwhelming Remorse is going to make me super happy. Oh, pass turn. That was almost definitely a misclick. But I'll take it. I'll take 0 damage here. So that seems like an all-attack turn to me. I guess it actually would have been better for us if they did all-attack, because then I kill Mine Worker, take 1, and still kill the Automaton. Alright, so they're 100% out of cards. We can definitely stabilize. Juggernaut has to attack. That's the only rough thing. I want to Onulet here. I would... I really want a white source that doesn't cost me a life every time. So let's just grab that. On Rager plus Disfigure. I might be on Rager plus Disfigure. I think I am. It's painful, but I think I'm on Rager Disfigure and I'll Onulet next turn. Oh, there's another white source that doesn't cost us life. That's very good. Block, Disfigure, take 1. Might want to Disfigure before they draw in case they hit something that triggers the Swift Spear prowess, but I think it's just if they attack all, I block Swift Spear and Disfigure Mine Worker. Okay, pass turn. They hit a land there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana next turn. 4 mana for Onulet, 2 for Mutt, 2 for Engineer. I can use all of my mana next turn if I Disfigure now. Yeah, I'm gonna have enough blockers now. I can multi-block with spears. So let's just get rid of Mine Worker so we speed up our clock. And then we are going to use all of our mana this turn. We are 100% going to Onulate first and foremost. We are never paying life for this, well, I spoke too soon. We are avoiding paying life with Battlefield Forge as often as possible, but I do need to do that for Scrapwork Mutt. Oh, another Juggernaut. Sweet stuff, sweet stuff. Attack with all of the Unearth, hold back a Rager and an Engineer to block with. They are down to 6 life. And I'm going to gain a bunch here. I'm going to gain 2. That's not a bunch. I'm going to gain a little here. Now we are at the life total lead. Another land from our opponent. They're flooding out in the end, which is so good for us. Carrion Locust can kill them in the sky pretty quickly. But I might be able to find lethal on board? No, I don't have enough red mana. If I could unearth Mutt, discard Juggernaut, and unearth that as well, I could, but I don't have the red to unearth the Juggernaut. So we'll just go... Honestly... No... I've got the mana to play Juggernaut and Locust, so we probably just do that. And that's 2 blockers up, so we attack with everybody here. This might have been lethal on board if I just did Mutt right now. Yeah, it would have been. I'm a fool. I'm a buffoon. Actually, it's lethal if I just exile something with Locust. That does a damage. Oh my god, alright, let's go! Did not expect that one. A very, very nice run from this black-white splashing red unearth strategy. Again, I knew the power level of the unearth cards. We had a lot of synergy in our sealed pool, which is obviously excellent. It's just the very start, the very initial reaction of opening the sealed pool, seeing all those rares was pretty devastated, but turns out, even in Brothers War, even in sealed, you don't need rares, you don't need mythics to win if you have a pretty lucky, consistent strategy. There's a lot of different ways you can open a good sealed pool. This, of course, did not look great off the initial opening because there wasn't that immediate, ooh, I have all these bombs to play around with. But that doesn't mean it's not a lucky sealed pool. It's certainly a very lucky sealed pool when it comes to the quality of synergy that we got to put together here. We have multiple self-mill cards: Gnawing Vermin, Airlift Chaplain, Locust, Ravenous Gigamole, and Disciples of Gix, all getting us good unearth value throughout the game. We had a good aggressive curve of creatures in this sealed pool. 1-drops, plenty of 2s, 3s. The Power Stones from the Engineers helping cast all these artifact creatures and spend their unearth abilities was great. Everything in the deck just functioned together like peanut butter and jelly. It just all like a well-oiled machine or a delicious sandwich. Take your pick of what analogy you'd like to use. Pretty much everything that I was trying to put together in a way that would work out synergistically did work out synergistically and found us a lot of victories there against some really good decks from some opponents. Fought our way through multiple autonomous automatons or whatever they're called. That one gigantic menace lifelink worm that I thought for sure we had just lost to after they played the Phyrexian Revoker. And just really nice consistent stuff from this deck, and I'm super happy with this Arena Open Day 1 event, but that means we are qualified for the Arena Open Day 2. So tomorrow's video is going to be the Brothers War Arena Open Day 2 event. That will be a best of 3 draft event. Very, very competitive one there. They did change how it works. For a while there, it was 1 single match loss and you're out. But now if you lose 2 matches, you'll be out from the Brothers War draft. You do play 2 separate drafts if you make it there, if you win enough games in your first draft. And if you make it to draft number 2, that's where you can get cash prizes all the way up to $2,000 on the line. So we're going to be competing to the best of our ability in that event tomorrow. But until then, as always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed playing it. And if you want to see some more videos like this, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. But once again, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.